not to show her emotions as soon as a guilty verdict for Estrada was handed out, but one of her cabinet officials simply cannot help it. Jove Francisco has that story.
Once again, the palace was turned into a virtual fortress. Blockades were in place and the gates were tightly guarded. Emerging from buses that brought them here from the provinces, the number of police and soldiers swelled from hundreds to thousands. Minutes after Estrada was found guilty of plunder, President Arroyo received the Japanese ambassador inside the palace for a farewell call. She was wearing her choice of color during times of crisis. Light blue, the color they associate with peace and reconciliation. She displayed her usual smile to show that despite the potentially disastrous situation and a last-minute decision to cancel her trip to Makati for a mid-year economic report to businessmen, it is business as usual in her administration. She would have wanted to tie up her attendance at the event to the meat of the palace reaction on the verdict. That they are bowing to the decision of the court and that it is their hope to move on from this sad episode of our history so that they can concentrate on improving our economy.
I just talked to her a while ago. She says, well, mahirap naman magsabing maligaya ako. This is okay. She received the verdict.
In contrast to the decidedly low-key stance of the palace is the very animated reaction of Presidential Chief Legal Counsel Sergio Apostol on the verdict. With two hands showing a victory sign, he says the guilty verdict for Erap will only bring good things for the administration and for the nation. Apostol was one of the Solons who served as prosecutor in the Senate impeachment hearings.
Sinasabi ng mga pare, di ba? Justice conferred with mercy sa justice. This time, reconciliation with justice. By justice, the reconciliation is susunod.
When asked about giving Erap pardon, Apostol says everything is still up in the air, especially after Estrada said that he won't accept such offers from the administration. Jove Francisco, ABC News.
Despite staying inside the palace the whole day, President Arroyo still had a full schedule that ended just minutes ago. Jove Francisco is still in the palace to give us details, updates. Jove.
President Arroyo never mentioned the case or the name of former President Joseph Estrada, but in her speech tonight, she tackled the decision made by the Sandigan Bayan. She opened her speech by admitting that we are all experiencing a very sensitive time in our nation's history, an opportunity for her to call on the people to unite so that the nation's economic development will not be derailed by developments in politics. She called on everyone to abide by the rule of law, to follow the decision of our courts, obviously pertaining to the guilty verdict that the Sandigan Bayan handed down to the former President Estrada this morning. There was no mention of the much talked about possibility of giving Erap presidential pardon, but PGMA stressed the need for healing and reconciliation on reaching out to the personalities on the other side of the political fence. She also noted that today is a turning point for the Filipino people because a lot of Pinoys are already tired of political drama. PGMA ended her speech by saying that we should start writing a new chapter and that we should all move on. Here are some of the remarks made by the President during the Bishops' Ulama Conference event inside the palace.
We live by the rule of law. We abide by what the courts of the land decide. We must be a government that abides by the courts, by what the courts of the land decide on matters of dispute.
It will be business as usual for the President tomorrow, but all of her activities will still be confined inside Malacanang. Martin.
That was Jove Francisco reporting live from Malacanang. It was Javid Singson who spelled doom for Estrada, but even if he takes Erap's conviction as his vindication, he says he is not totally relieved. And Kamatbat tells us why.
For former Ilocos Sur Governor Luis Javid Singson, the guilty verdict on former President Joseph Estrada brought mixed emotions. He is relieved that the trial is over, but at the same time expressed sadness for those who sacrificed their lives, especially his former secretary Marlene Perez, who was killed allegedly due to her involvement in the plunder case against his former close ally.
Ang gusto ko lang naman sana masunod yung batas, ang batas, pagkasentensyado, like yung mga nangyari na. dinadala na sa bilangguan sa Muntinlupa.
Jove was the one who exposed Erap's kickbacks from wedding for which the former president was convicted. He says he welcomes Estrada's plan to elevate the matter to the Supreme Court, but he believes this would only make things worse for Erap and his co-accused.
Guilty si Jinggoy dahil nga marami naman witnesses. Magaling lang kasi magsinungaling si Jinggoy dahil nung dinay niya na may cheque siya pumasok, mayroong cheque yun. At nagpunta sa bahay, hindi ako nagpunta. Hanggang madaling araw nga sa bahay nung nakikiusap.
While it may take several more years for the Supreme Court to affirm or reverse the Sandigan Bayan verdict, Jove says it is now time for the nation to move on.
Magpakatotoo na, total tapos na yung kaso. Huwag na sana tayong arte pa para mabago ang buhay natin lahat. Kung talagang pagsisisi or pagbabagong hangad nila, hindi na dapat magsinungaling.
Singson says only an Erap apology can make him worthy of a presidential pardon. Errol Kabatbat, ABC News.
Overseas, Japan's Prime Minister quits his post. The U.S. and China agreed to toughen up on the use of lead paints and toys and the 6th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks in New York. This report from Jackie Shep.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced his resignation, saying there would be a better chance of continuing Japan's support for U.S. military operations in Afghanistan under a new leader. Japanese ships are refueling U.S.-led coalition vessels in the Indian Ocean under a mandate that expires on November 1. The main opposition Democratic Party has vowed to block an extension.
And other product recalls.
U.S. and Chinese officials agreed to take tougher actions to stop the use of lead paint in toys and ensure the safety of children. Toy makers and importers, including Walt Disney Company, have started their own tests, while China says U.S. importers must also take responsibility. The 6th anniversary of the September 11 attacks dawned drizzly and dark in New York City. The victims' families arrived at the main commemoration ceremony with umbrellas and flowers in hand. This is the first time that the city's 9/11 observance was not held directly at Ground Zero, but at a small park nearby. Jackie Sherda, ABC News.
Next on Centro, the tight watch remains around Metro Manila. And a new advocacy on the internet.